didn't ask to be super, and I'm no hero. But when your worst enemy is after your best girl, it's time to be a superhero.
Let's get out there and make a difference.
Wait, did I leave the stove on?
Deadpool. You look like an avocado had sex with an older avocado.
Thank you.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So there's some new Deadpool footage. I thought I'd cook some Sunday tacos, so here we go. My favorite thing about Deadpool right now isn't even the movie that's coming, which is going to be awesome by the way, but the fact that Deadpool is now the new Wolverine of the X-Men Fox universe, in that Ryan Reynolds is kind of like a Hugh Jackman type figure. Hugh Jackman is slowly leaving the Wolverine character behind. He still has a Wolverine solo film to do. That's not going to come for a little while, so we still have that. But Hugh Jackman is this big A-list actor that Fox kind of built the X-Men films around for a long time. Then when Jennifer Lawrence blew up, they started to make the movies revolve around her a little bit more. Like the new X-Men Apocalypse film, look at how much Mystique's character is in that trailer. She's like the leader of the opposition in that movie, and it's all because Jennifer Lawrence is a great actress, but she's also one of the biggest stars on the planet, and that's usually what studios look for when they look for characters to build films around. And even though the X-Men franchise is a big ensemble cast, it's a huge cast of characters, you typically have to have like one or two big characters to build the movie around. Hugh Jackman was one of the few people to survive the big X-Men reboot. Now I know they did Days of Future Past and they brought a bunch of the classic X-Men actors back, but Wolverine is still Hugh Jackman no matter what time period you're in. That is because he is a huge bankable star, and I feel like Ryan Reynolds is the next version of that for them. Deadpool as a character has had team-ups with all kinds of comic book characters. Spideypool is just the latest big one. We have to talk about that in a second too. But what I'm expecting is that after X-Men Apocalypse, you'll start seeing Deadpool pop up in all these different films like you would see Wolverine cameo in a bunch of different films. Like they're like, okay, we'll put Wolverine in it, that'll get people really excited, like, holy crap, Wolverine's kicking ass in this other person's movie. X-Force is a really good example of a risk inside this X-Men universe for Fox. It's a title that most people who don't read comics won't be familiar with. Wolverine was part of X-Force in the comics, and normally I think they would try to throw Hugh Jackman into it just to support the movie, but because Hugh Jackman's deal is expiring and it'd just be too expensive to put him in the movie, I feel like Deadpool would be a good proxy for that. Deadpool also a huge part of X-Force. Now that's just one example. You don't need him quite as much in a big X-Men film, but Jennifer Lawrence is leaving the franchise too, so Fox is looking for their next Hugh Jackman Wolverine. An actor who's amazing, that everybody loves, with a character that's really interesting to write. And it sounds like that's what Deadpool might end up being. Now, the Deadpool movie hasn't come out, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say that it's the most amazing thing to ever hit cinema. But I totally think that Ryan Reynolds would be down to be their next Hugh Jackman. It means a ton more money for him, and when he guest stars in other films, like he does the Hugh Jackman type cameo, the Wolverine type cameo, he only has to be on set for a couple days, so it's a relatively easy proposition. And usually when really big actors do stuff like this, when they pop up in a bunch of different films, usually the benefits go beyond money. Like they forge a big relationship with the studio, so they do their passion projects, so it's like, hey, I want to do these 4 small films, but I'll do these big X-Men films for you too. So don't be surprised if you see Ryan Reynolds start popping up as Deadpool in a bunch of different films. It's super awesome, but then between those big films, you see Ryan Reynolds doing a bunch of smaller passion projects that he has much more control over, distributed by Fox. That's really what you see big actors like Robert Downey Jr. do, where it's like they do these big films, you know, they're Iron Man for the rest of their life, but they use that influence and power and money to make small films that really interest them. So let me know in the comments, do you think that Fox eventually is going to start using Deadpool the same way it uses Wolverine in all of its X-Men universe films? Because they are working on X-Force, they're working on New Mutants, so there's just like a bunch of titles that Deadpool was a big part of in the comics. It just makes sense that if Ryan Reynolds is going to be one of the biggest stars on the planet, you're going to put him in all those films. The real hard part though is when you use characters like Deadpool and Wolverine in movies in a small way without it either feeling stupid or them completely taking over the plot. Imagine if you tried to do X-Men First Class, but Apocalypse showed up. Suddenly the movie wouldn't be about them assembling the team for the first time at Xavier's school. It'd be all about Apocalypse. Like you would completely forget about what everyone else was doing. So upside, downside, I think it'd be a good idea to try and use Deadpool, at least in a minor way, in some of these other films. Ryan Reynolds totally fits the mold. Huge, relatively bankable star, internationally super popular, with a character that people really love. Either way, Jennifer Lawrence and Hugh Jackman have both announced they're done with X-Men films. Now, Hugh Jackman still has Wolverine, but Jennifer Lawrence is done after Apocalypse. And just to circle back around to Spider-Man, I know everybody's wondering about Spider-Man because they just rebooted the character with Tom Holland. We haven't really seen him yet in any of the trailers. We don't know how they're going to use him going forward beyond the Sony films that are going to be their own story and then the Marvel films that he appears in. Although technically it's all connected because Spider-Man is now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It sounds more complicated than it actually is, but I feel like Spider-Man could be in Marvel's films the same thing that Deadpool could be in the X-Men films. Just the character that pops up everywhere. And if you haven't been reading it, you should totally check out Spideypool. It started a couple years ago, now they've rebooted it because of Secret Wars, but there is a Spider-Man and Deadpool comic where they team up. Most of the fun, because they are wisecrackers, is that they have this odd couple relationship where Spider-Man is like great power, great responsibility, but Deadpool is great power, zero responsibility. And there's actually a really awesome, really deep cut, if you haven't read it, a story where Deadpool goes back to an amazing Spider-Man story, like way back in the golden age of Spider-Man's comics. Modern writers wrote him into a classic Spider-Man tale. If you ever watch Mystery Science Theater 3000, it's kind of like Deadpool's version of that. He goes back and kind of lives this Spider-Man story through Peter Parker's eyes. So like you see these yellow bubbles here, this is Deadpool talking as Peter Parker. Not exactly a Spider-Man Deadpool team up, but Spideypool before Spideypool became a thing. Don't you just feel like if Marvel and Fox were to ever come to an arrangement where they share a character, Deadpool would be that character? The tone of Deadpool is much closer to the way they write those Avengers movies anyway, so I feel like he'd be perfect in their franchise. If you haven't seen any of the videos I posted about Marvel and DC stuff next week is technically DC week, but there's still a bunch of Marvel stuff happening and still some Deadpool stuff that'll probably drop too. So just be sure to subscribe to get everything, and I'll put links in the description that'll explain everything if you don't know what's going on. There's a bunch of trailers coming. New Suicide Squad, or the first Wonder Woman trailer I should say. Flash is coming back, bunch of DC shows starting, all kinds of awesome stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoy those breakfast tacos. While you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here for my Reverse Flash Returns trailer video, and you can click here for all my Deadpool videos. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.